Hey ladies and gents, welcome back. This is going to be part 1 to What If Naruto Was a Werewolf, a new what if I'm going to be making. We'll put the like goal at like 50 again, because why not? And with that being said, make sure to like and subscribe if you do enjoy, and let's just jump right into the what if itself. So our story is going to start off at the age of 7 for Naruto. His birth or anything like that wouldn't change, and the first real impacts of the story would be on this night. It's a cold winter night, and Naruto is kind of just walking through the forest at this point when he hears howling in the distance. Naruto decides it would probably be a good idea to go back home because he's really tired and he doesn't really want to have to deal with anything right now, so he begins walking back. But the howling is getting closer, and Naruto is still miles away from the actual village. He decides that he's going to need to turn around, so he begins preparing a little bit to face them. Taking out some kunai. He hasn't enrolled in the academy or anything yet, but he still has some form of self-defense on him, and Naruto decides that he just has to prepare for this. He has to get ready, otherwise this is probably just going to kill him. So, soon afterwards, like a few minutes later, Naruto is prepared and the wolves arrive. It's 3 of them, all pretty much in a pack, ready to attack Naruto, because in the middle of winter, they are really fucking hungry, which makes sense because of the fact that it's the middle of winter, and that's kind of like a scarce time for food for pretty much everybody. So Naruto decides, alright, okay, so how am I going to actually face off against the wolves? Am I going to let them come at me, or am I going to actually have to charge at them? That question is answered for Naruto as one of the wolves charges across towards him. Thinking that this is just a defenseless little boy, it doesn't attack with the pack and try to make some team effort out of this kill. No, it's just kind of going for it. So it charges towards Naruto across the clearing. Naruto holds up his kunai. And as soon as the wolf makes for the air, it jumps up towards him, Naruto dodges quickly to the side, stabbing the kunai into the creature as it drops to the ground dead. Naruto, now seeing that the other 2 are charging towards him at the same time, realizes he's only going to be able to take out one from this initial thing. And he's going to have to get hit by the other. So dodging to the side once again, Naruto tries to stab one of the wolves, and he actually does manage to get it on its neck, and it dies. But at the same time, one of the wolves had grabbed down on Naruto's leg, revealing a massive flesh wound down there. Naruto cries out in pain for this before stabbing down as hard as he can with the kunai, killing that wolf as well, as some of the blood splashes from this, stab wound into Naruto's. Now, obviously, this isn't how it would work in real life. A blood transplant that is done like this, or anyway, would not just turn you into some kind of human-wolf hybrid, but hey, for the sake of the story, so it's gonna happen like that. So this blood goes down into Naruto, and tonight just happens to be a full moon. Naruto begins slowly walking back towards, the village and his house, but eventually, a few minutes later, he ends up looking up towards the moon. And as this happens, Naruto completely loses himself. Hair begins growing out of Naruto as his body grows in size and turns into a humanoid wolf creature thing. Now, it doesn't have, and Naruto is completely out of control at this point, along with the fact that it probably wouldn't have any of Naruto's memories, so the chance that it actually goes miles to the village just on a whim is pretty rare, so I'm not going to say that happens. It just kind of wanders around killing animals, and Naruto eventually wakes up the next day in the morning laying pretty much just down on the thing. His leg is completely healed now, and he feels a little bit stronger than he did. He's not really sure why, but he stands up and begins walking back towards the village. Once he returns to the village, everybody's a little bit surprised to see him because he was gone for such a long time, and he actually grew a little bit. He's not full wolf at this point, obviously, but we'll just say it affected Naruto's body a little bit, and he's now a little bit taller, and as well as the fact that Naruto, or the werewolf, I guess you could say, probably ate a shit ton that night, just going around killing stuff and eating it. So we'll say Naruto was actually able to grow a little bit, so he's a little bit taller now. So many days would pass by. It's probably been months, maybe even a year by this point, and Naruto hasn't really had a reason to look up at the moon, and he doesn't really question anything like that. But one day, he does so. He looks up at the moon, and he feels his mind just giving away. He's in the middle of the village at this point, and he just feels himself passing out, going away, as if some other creature or existence was just going to take him over, or some primal instinct was about to. Naruto realizes this, and he tries as hard as he can to, like, stay in control. As he looks down at his hands, he sees claws developing and hair growing out of it. He is kinda shocked by this, but Naruto this time is actually able to keep somewhat control over himself. He is still, like, massively operating on, like, just primal instincts at this point, but he is able to at least direct it somewhat in some way. And he directs it outside of the village. Nobody even sees Naruto, because I don't really want to have to deal with, like, a manhunt or a werewolf hunt, whatever it is, but at least not yet. So, with this actually happening, Naruto does, like I said, end up getting enough control to just leave the village, but that doesn't mean that he's going to stay in control forever. Naruto manages it for a little bit, but eventually it just becomes too much for Naruto's really young mind at this point, and he once again loses it. He is pretty far away from the village at this point. Remember, Naruto, being a werewolf, would have much, like, enhanced speed, so he's probably running away from the village. And once again, like I said, he doesn't go into the village. He just wakes up pretty much in the morning and sees that, once again, he's just laying on the ground. But once again, he's also a little bit taller and feels a little bit stronger, and he doesn't quite understand it, but he realizes that this might have something to do with the full moon, so the next time it comes around, Naruto is going to have to look at it after leaving the village. So this is exactly what happens. Naruto, once again, like weeks later, goes out into the middle of the woods in like the middle of the night, on the night it's supposed to be a full moon. And when he does, he looks up at the moon once it comes out and transforms into a werewolf. Once again, he can feel his conscience slowly slipping away from him, but this time he actually manages to keep it under wraps for the entire night. He has pretty much just been like meditating, trying to like stay in control of it, just focusing all of his might on just trying to, because he wants to be able to do it. He knows that he can, but he also knows it would be extremely difficult. So Naruto, over the next year or so, would be pretty much developing his werewolf ability. Every time there's a full moon, he uses that to his advantage, and he goes and does that. And eventually, one day, Naruto is simply walking through the forest. It is the middle of the day, on a night that is not a full moon. Naruto, seeing a wolf across the clearing, decides to walk over towards it, as, he does so. He walks over, and the wolf doesn't seem to attack him. He doesn't really understand it. He walks up, and he, touches it. It doesn't even react, it just kind of looks at him. Naruto begins petting the wolf, kind of like a dog, and it just kind of it's pretty much a dog now. And Naruto's like, what the hell? That thing tried to kill me a few days ago. Why is it not doing that now? And Naruto realizes it. His power must have come from these wolves, and somehow, someway, he turned into this from getting the blood inside of him. Naruto, realizing this, thinks that maybe he shouldn't tell anybody about this, just in case. So the next years would go by, and Naruto has already enrolled in the academy, and he's doing pretty well in it in terms of physical strength, obviously. And in terms of book smarts, Naruto definitely isn't as bad as he was in the original. He's no slouch, but he's not like Shikamaru or Sakura in terms of just, that. He's still kinda dumb, but he's a lot smarter than he was in the original, and he can actually pass the test because of that. He goes to the library, learns about different things, and he actually ended up learning the Shadow Clone Jutsu from the Hokage himself. So when Naruto does graduate from the academy, he is placed once again on Team 7 with Sakura and Sasuke. And that just doesn't change because Naruto has the Nine Tails, Sasuke has the Sharingan, and the Sharingan can not only kind of control the Nine Tails, at least it's been said to, but he, Sasuke has the Sharingan and Kakashi has one, so that's kind of the reason that they were even put on those teams in the original. It doesn't have as much to do with their grades as most people actually think. It is more to do with the suitability towards Kakashi and, what other team leaders would be able to subdue such forces. So, with that, Naruto then waits for Kakashi to arrive with Sakura and Sasuke, and eventually he does. It's been hours at this point, and they've pretty much just all been sitting there in silence. And tells his teammates to meet him up on the roof. So they all do so. Naruto gets there pretty quick along with the other two, and they do their introductions. So Naruto's would be a little bit different. He still wants to become the Hokage, but he's not as childish as he was before. He's not like, oh well, I'm Naruto Uzumaki, I like ramen, I want to be the Hokage No, he's more formal about it. He's like, I'm Naruto Uzumaki, and let me just say, I'm probably going to become the Hokage someday, because I'm probably already stronger than you, Kakashi. And Naruto says this, and Kakashi is shocked. He's like, you're probably stronger than me, eh? Yeah, we'll see about that tomorrow. And the other two would be exactly the same, except Sakura doesn't have such a hatred towards Naruto, and Sasuke has a bit more of a friendly rivalry with him. And it's not as one-sided because Naruto's obviously a lot stronger, and he's not as annoying, so, it's just less one-sided, and Naruto's actually the one on top this time. That sounds very gay, but that's okay. So anyway, Kakashi tells him meet him in this field the next day, and actually don't eat any breakfast or anything like that. They agree to this, and they meet Kakashi the next day, and he explains to them what the bell test is. There are 2 bells, and only 2 of them can pass, and one of them is getting sent back to the academy. So they all dart off into the woods, including Naruto this time, and something pretty interesting, I guess you could say, would happen is that Naruto is actually a lot smarter, like I said, and he would realize what the meaning of this actual test is, so he makes 2 shadow clones. He sends them both in different directions, one to go to Sakura and one to go to Sasuke once he figures out where they are. He explains to them what the test means, and they develop a plan in order to pretty much ambush Kakashi and hopefully be able to subdue him and take the bells from him. So Naruto goes out first, except it isn't the real Naruto. It is 2 shadow clones, the ones that were with Sasuke and Sakura, walking from the pretty much either side of Kakashi towards him from across the field. Now, Kakashi knows this, and he realizes that one or both is a shadow clone, so he decides, alright, he'll humor Naruto a little bit, and because of that flex earlier, he's gonna put his book down and really give Naruto a good 1-2. So, as he decides this, both of the Narutos just start charging at Kakashi from across the field, going pretty quick, but not as fast as Kakashi. So Kakashi is pretty easily able to react to this, and he blocks both of the kunai from the 2 Narutos and punches them both. They both poof into a cloud of smoke, not surprising Kakashi at all. He expected them to be clones, but what does surprise him is that the real Naruto was beneath him. He burrowed under the ground, and he grabbed Kakashi's legs, now pulling him under, similar to Kakashi pretty much planting Sasuke. So Kakashi, now under the ground, the real Naruto comes from above and slams his foot down on Kakashi's head in an attempt to knock him out. However, it just poofs into a cloud of smoke, revealing that it was just a clone all along, and the real Kakashi is now behind Naruto with a kunai held against his back. Now, Naruto, realizing this, is like, alright, that's cool and all, but you should turn around. Kakashi thinks that Naruto's just pranking him a little bit, but then he sees that there's a clone of Naruto standing behind him, holding a kunai. Now, Kakashi's really surprised by this. He wasn't expecting Naruto to come up with such a, elaborate plan. But before he can even think about what is happening, he gets sent flying with a kick from Sasuke, who just came out and just absolutely sent him flying, like I just said. He gets smashed into a tree as he falls to the ground. He gets on his knees and begins to stand up, trying to recombobulate himself. Is that a word? I don't know. He's pretty much trying to reorientate himself. But before he even can, he feels both of his hands go behind his back in quick succession before something is wrapped around them. He then feels himself being dropped down to the ground from a kick as he falls down, as Sakura was pretty much just standing there waiting for Sasuke to kick him over. So with Sakura doing this, Kakashi falls down to the ground and is completely tied up. Naruto walks up to the, teacher, grabs both of the bells, and hands one to each of his teammates. Kakashi smiles at this, undoing the restraints on his own, knowing that he doesn't really need help. Sakura can't tie it that tightly. And he then explains to them that they passed. Naruto knew that this was going to happen, and is a little proud of himself for figuring it out so quickly and coming up with such a, decent plan. At least Kakashi seemed to be caught off guard by it, so that was good. So they, like I just said, ended up passing, and they start their D-rank missions, which go pretty normally. It doesn't go by any faster, and nothing really of interest happens. So the next, few days would go by, just doing D and D-rank missions. That sounds very weird. Why I keep making things like that without actually trying to. That's very interesting. So eventually they get way too bored of that, and they decide that they want a higher ranking mission, so that is actually what they're going to do. So they go to Hiruzen and ask for a higher ranking mission, and after a little bit of convincing, he eventually does accept, and he gives them a C rank mission to guide a bridge builder named Tazuna back to the Land of Waves to build a bridge. So they meet at the gate the next day, and they begin leaving with Tazuna. Something very interesting happens. As they're leaving, they haven't even come up to the puddle yet, Naruto suddenly feels this primal urge. There is no moon, no nothing, and Naruto suddenly feels as if he's about to turn into a werewolf. He's really confused by this as he sees hair start growing out of his hands. He looks down and realizes what is about to happen, and realizes that he is going to have to explain to the people around him that he is a werewolf. But I'll be leaving that for the next part, so I'll see you guys then. Peace out.